Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, as I was saying, have, I have no agriculture background, and when I started about it, being having some mechanical background, and I worked in an IT firm initially. So I wanted to. I did an initial, let's say, 6 months of survey kind of a thing because this was my stream of business that I chose. So I wanted to initially analyze. I viewed this as a production industry, and I wanted to create some similar kind of standardized mechanism where it could be more controllable and uh, to to have an end-to-end uh, system, like from production to the delivery part. Everything should be systemized and standardized. That was my initial objective, and I was trying to understand how the dynamics works and stuff. And as a part of it, I went around, learned a lot about our traditional farming and as well as the modern uh, improvements that has come up. So based on my interactions with farmer community and understanding agriculture business in general, I understood like three takeaways from majorly. First point is that currently our agriculture domain is largely not uh, able to like value realization, the supply chain mechanism and the supply to demand mechanism that was not actually functioning well. So you can find like uh, the the people who are producing don't will not know what should be the selling price that they have to sell and how they can brand themselves to push into the market. And second part of it is in terms of production, they were not very sure on what are the anything that they suggest, shop is suggesting them, or generally that comes around as a suggestion is taken up, but there no where is the knowledge bank for the number of varieties that are available, what are the unique things about them, and those kind of production specific information that is supposed to be known by the person who are growing it. And addition to that, even when it comes to nutrition management and also pest management and disease management, every segment of this knowledge is inherently given to the farmer community from somebody. Given is not something wrong, but the people who are producing the product is not completely aware of what it is. So every time when some disease or pest is happening, we will rely on somebody else knowledge, like we go to the shop and whatever they suggest, we'll try it out, something like that. So I saw such kind of mechanism in it. And third part is there is no much of a cumulative effort. Like this is like 10 years back, before this FPOs that are happening now are a big topic. So there was lack of that kind of very connected marketing or connected production channels were not there. So I felt like, okay, so here that I can make a difference. So from start, I wanted to make sure that I maintain the data properly and try to grow as it goes on. So the current topic of multi-cropping with millets and vegetable is a product of all these things. So my main motto when I started production is that I never grow anything that I can't market. So since I wanted to do the end-to-end part completely by myself, I make sure that only the products that I can market. For example, I would never grow cotton because like cotton is again sold to another industry, not to the end customers. So I make sure that any produce that I produce, I after producing it, I sell it at its best valued product. Like for example, I grow groundnut. So when I grow groundnut, I make sure if it is possible for me to have, if it's possible for me to put a seed form, I prefer that. And seed form, they do grading when you take it out. So after the grading, whichever is left out, I use it for oil, producing oil, and I sell it as a groundnut oil. And on a regular basis, I try to categorize it. Some part of groundnut I sell it raw, some part I keep it, break it, and sell it as groundnut kernels. So I make sure that anything that I produce, I try to value add it as much as possible. Not in a very grand scale, I would say, but everything has to have a start. So I am of a nature of trying out something in a small scale understanding the dynamics of it and slowly scaling up. So when it comes to the current aspect of vegetables and millets, I am an organic certified farmer, and most of us who are doing organic farming will know the challenges in it. Mainly with respect to pest management. When you say organic farming, the first thing would be how any organic farmer will have a discussion is that how you control a specific pest. So initially, I tried this out with multi-cultivation for groundnut along with sesame and corn, like that, maize. I mixed it in a particular fashion in such a way that I ended up with a formula where for the entire cycle of the groundnut, I don't have to apply any pesticide, and there was no need for it because the way we do the multi-cultivation, the pest aspect of the pest and disease aspect of the management is taken care of by the crop management itself, and only we should concentrate more about the nutrient part. So from that, I try to develop that aspect into more things, and I was much interested in vegetables because of its sheer difficulty to manage. The dynamics of vegetables is very is to a different level, and since I wanted to do this end-to-end thing, right? So when for groundnut, you can just sell it as groundnut. We don't need anything else. Even for millet, it is so. If you have just, let's say, foxtail millet, you can sell a huge, like 1 ton, 2 tons of foxtail millet. But when it comes to vegetables, when you're going to reach the end customer, let's say a shop, or when I say end customer, it is not exactly the consumers. My consumer, I would segment it as like wholesale shops, retail shops, and also individual buyers. All these three categories I would consider. Okay. So when it comes to that aspect, when the challenge is that when you reach it as a vegetable, you can't go it as a single entity. Even for fruits, we can do that. I have done it for papaya. With just papaya, you can market it. But when it comes to vegetables, it should be at least 8 to 9 vegetables. You should be able to supply it, and you should be able to supply it on a continuous basis. Only then this end-to-end will work for vegetables. So in that way, vegetables is particularly challenging, and also the pest disease and the nutrition management of vegetables is to a different difficulty level. So I wanted to try and test it out, which I did it for groundnut again in for the vegetables. So there are 3-4 aspects. So when I choose this, because I have a prior knowledge on how I did it. So the main aspect would be you should have a good understanding on, let's say you have a target vegetables. I go on with like 5-6 vegetables to a minimum scale. Like it should be like tomato, chilies. Those are like the regular ones, right? Brinjal, radish. I'm from Madurai, which is not very close to any hill stations. That's pretty arid climate. So I chose those, on my soil type is red soil type. So I chose my vegetable in consideration to what could be grown in my place. I grown cluster bean, and in Tamil we call it as avarai. I'm not sure on the lab. Yeah. So I chose my vegetables, and I also, a part of my farm will always be dedicated for some experimental things like beans. Something that only we will believe it to be growing close to. Radish is one such thing. So mostly it comes from hills or foothills region, but a certain variety of radish suits well for my place also. So likewise, when it comes to any, as a general fact, when you're going to do any type of mixed cultivation, first you should have good knowledge on what variety you're choosing. That is in particular with vegetables, you must be knowing which is suitable for your area and for your field. To be very specific, I can say like I have this particular MD1 variety of cluster bean. So normally I go about with not any hybrid vegetables. I go with that native vegetables or the improved varieties which are released by any like TNAU or any agri universities, like, for that matter. So I make sure that I interact with the person who are within the plant breeding department to understand what are the characteristics that we are looking out for when it is fully matured. And I also I mean, basically, I need a selling point, right? When I pick up tomato, I won't go with the normal market available the hard country tomatoes, but not with a bit of a traditional one, because like I'm not going to sell it to a third party. The so the choice of variety plays a major role, because based on that your target pest and target diseases, everything changes, and that variety will be with specific to a season also. Not every variety will be performing well during rainy season and the summer times. So such kind of things you need to you need some patience to try it out, do it in a smaller plot, understand the apart from the information that we get from these academic side, it is also a good practice to try it out in our field and to understand how the end product is at. And yeah, once you finalize on these varieties, now we will have like list of target pests that we are looking out for, like something like that. So but the advantage of actually by practice, how the next stage would be, what should be the companion crop that we are planning so that these pests is getting controlled. But the advantage of millets is that millets are by traditionally very pest resistant. They are not much affected by any pest. So when you have a, let's say on a plot of 100 plus 100, I segregate it as like you can, for example, you can say it as our England flag, right? So in between you have a cross in it. So that will be our companion crop, which would be the millets. So the plot will be divided by the millet field, and the millet will be having a good breadth, at least some 3 to 4 feet breadth. So in that way, you can visibly see, even when you have a pest incidence or disease incidence, the spread rate will be much affected. Okay, so normally the way I go about it is not by the rectangular mode, but by a straight path. So I make sure that the breadth of it is restricted to some 10 feet or 12 feet, depending on how I wanted to harvest it and how I prefer to make the bed. And I make it as a long strip, like 300 feet, meter long, like that. So the idea behind that is that when you have a pest incidence at a single point, it radiates as a circle, right? Concentric circle kind of. That's how when you observe a pest or disease being spread, it will be always in such a way. It spreads in all directions. So by restricting two of the sides with a companion crop that is not very encouraging for the pest to spread out, by that means we are having some some bandwidth of extra time to help the plant. I mean, probably to make our plans on the pest control or disease control. Because like by normal means, we will have a regular schedules on our pesticides or whatever that we are using, like be it organic or inorganic. Uh, we will have our own schedules, right? So in that aspect, planning the layout when you do an intercultivation or mixed cultivation is very important, and also timing of it. Say for example, I have different vegetables. Right, the other challenge of vegetable is that each of them will start yielding at a different time. So you have to plan it in such a way that when you are mixing a crop in a bed, let's say sometimes I mix my uh, tomatoes and chilies with radish in between. In the buns, I used to put the radish, because like radish will have more productivity, but in terms of market acceptance, let's say if I have 10 tons of tomato, I can easily sell it out. But radish with somewhere around 10 tons, that will come in relatively very small area, and to sell it out, sometimes it might be very difficult. Okay, so because the consumption rate of radish will be less than the tomato. So vegetable is complex because of this nature. Not every vegetable is received in the same way, and there is a moderation in the way you plant the plot of it for each vegetable. That too, when you do a multi-crop vegetable, that is also there. The other challenging would be when you plant this border crops, right? So which is the companion crops, which will be in this case millets. For me, it has worked out to do it in a manual way. So my breadth would be like the width of the bun crops or the companion crops would be around 3 to 4 feet, decent. So the idea is that uh, if two people are harvesting from either side of it, it will be easy for them, for them to harvest, and it will be faster too. But I'm currently trying to, mechanize whichever is feasible. Like for cutting, we can mechanize like that. For I'm trying to mechanize it as well. And with my plot, I'm trying to, have a surrounding space where I can bring my vehicle to load. So to minimize the manual labor aspect of it as much as possible, I'm also laying out my field in such a way that all these, uh, even though I'm doing it manual, even if I convert it to semi-automatic stuff, it will be easy for me. So it's like I'm concentrating on, having a harvester, not in no, the one with the vehicle that goes in like that, but we have separate uh, thresher, not exactly the harvester. Sorry. So I will be harvesting it manually and putting it in a thresher so that I can, it can separate the grains and get it. Because in my view, that aspect of it is more costlier than the harvest itself. So likewise, everything comes down to cost. You have to see wherever which are manageable. Even if I go by manual, it is manageable, means I will go by that. Instead of, um, always prefer very rigid on being automatic, or reducing manual labor, something like that. So wherever the cost to benefit ratio, whenever that goes, that balance is missing out, I will try to bring in some mechanization to help out with it. So to summarize the main points whichever I've said so far, first thing is that by deciding to grow multi-cropping, you must have enough knowledge about the varieties that you're going to put in, including for millets, and also for so in a take millets, you have different heights. Better to go with a larger height of one, but there are certain millets which will, which will not be standing up, which will not tolerate, heavy rainfall. So that's why choosing what variety comes good for you, depending on your soil type, climatic conditions, that is very important. And once you do it, do a layout plan. So the layout plan I would suggest is to not go with the traditional grid type, but with the strip type. Divide your plan into stage steps. In that way, even when when you have it as a rectangle, when you plow it using tractor, I mean, if you check out the time it takes, having a straight step will be much easier, and you can customize it whatever you want. You can minimize the straight step because you can go a straight line, come back, as long as it can turn. The tractor can turn pretty accurate if you have some 10 or 6 feet. 10 feet gap should be more than enough. 6 feet is manageable. Anyways, you will be planning your vehicle route, right, to pick up all the loads. So that way, having a steady step will have very, good in terms of economical perspective as well, and also in terms of pest management as well. So after selecting the variety, you have to be very, I mean, depending on everything depends on the terrain. Okay, so you have for your terrain, I would suggest anything, not the traditional rectangular type of split, but a strip kind of a strip, straight as much as possible. It should be one-dimensionally long. So that way, the rate of disease or pest spread can be controlled. And thirdly, your regular schedules on pest management stuff. So that is also important, but that is something that we always do. So I don't want to highlight it much. But the fourth part I would like to point out very on a high priority basis would be the nutrition management. See, when you have, oh, sorry, the third thing would be again, when you select varieties, when you decide on layout, you have to also consider that when it is a vegetable, each vegetable will have a different timing of production. So you have to start the cultivation in such a way that when one is taken out, the other would be ready, and when the harvesting is happening for one vegetable, the other part is not getting trampled with. So the strip type is actually for all these things, it will be very easy. I have a straight walking path. So the first, the immediate uh, harvest ones will be closer to the buns, and the ones which will be for a longer duration will be closer to the center of it. So that way, these things are handled. Okay. And for the nutrition management, particularly when it is organic cultivation, I still have it as a challenge. I haven't, addressed it completely yet. So that's why I'm saying it is first, because like even I have not. First 3 points I can be very sure of, because I've tried and tested out that works well. But with respect to nutrition management, I'm trying various things. Getting various materials and trying out various aspects to standardize the way I can give a nutrition, but yet I'm not very sure, because normally, we see the cultivation returns like for every batch that we do. But the nutrition management, I mean, after having some 8-9 years of experience, I understood that it has a very slow decline. So basically, when your soil has been recharged with nutrition properly, then the yield level will be very consistent. Or else, without your knowledge, there'll be a slight decline, which if you fail to grasp it, the decline gets steeper as the time progresses. So nutrition management, particularly when you do multi-cultivation, it has its own advantage, because when you mix it up, if you have listened carefully with my choice of vegetables that I said, I would have mixed the leguminous part, the bean part, together with the other vegetable parts. So that is inherently a nutrition management in it as well. And there are like particular things that you can automatically do, like have marigold plants, or even the seasonal plants. So they help you with nematode issues and eco-freeze crops kind of concepts. Uh, be innovative. I would say have a flexible mind and be innovative, so that you can accommodate different aspect and cut down the cost parallelly. So that would be the main thing. In nutrition, the challenge is that we will not be, let's say the blanket load is like 10 tons per acre per year. You split it. I have even tried like splitting it and giving it 4 months doses, because 10 tons at a time it will be very big one. But I can divide it like 3 months, and I can give like for each quarter 2.5 tons, like that. I can divide between cultivations. I can divide. I used to do it that way. I used to do an enrichment using bioorganisms like that. Though it has given very good results in terms of fruit crops, because in fruit crops the root zone area is very minimum, right? So and the standing crop will be, I tried it for papaya, guava, and all. So you have a long duration crop whose root zone is very specific, and you're locally applying your nutrition directly to it. So nutrition management will be much easier when it comes to long duration crops like fruit crops. But it's a very big challenge when it comes to any agricultural crops or vegetables, because it's a broadcast, right? You don't those are like short duration crops comparatively. So your nutrition management becomes particularly very complex in that way. And there should be nutrition not only through soil but also using floral sprays also. So foliage sprays also, sorry. So I believe it should be combination of both. That's how you recover it. So I mean, after this 8 years, like 3-4 years ago, I understood this declining part of it, and I try to uh, concentrate on just. I was very fixated on very organic inputs as well, but I started thinking of using my enriched things, and also using groundnut, our groundnut waste. Now we put it back. So I used to fact I never used to quantitate it. Now I'm factoring everything in and observing it in a longer space. Like within a year, do I see an increase for the same style of cultivation? Do I see an increase in production or not? And only when I see an increase in production, I take it as a positive sign on a longer duration, not for a particular yield. Because any nutrient that you put in today will be, it should chance, it gives in organic inputs, it gives out after 6 to 8 months. So you should see a broader span of time to understand the nutrition management, whichever we are doing is in the right sense or not. So the 4 points that I mentioned, right? So first is like know your variety, second is plan your layout, plan your cultivation, and fourth is so plan your cultivation will include all your pest management, timing of cropping, and the fourth part will be the nutrition management. If you have done all these 4 things correct, then it you will be ended up with a very good product at a very nominal production cost. So that would be ideally my target, right? So my target is to approach end customer at a very reasonable rate. From I would say if I go as an organic vegetable, I'm looking out to sell it out at like 5 to 10% extra cost than what is available in the market cost. And even with that, I must be able to make a good profit. So that is my intention, and that to achieve that target, I'm trying all these. So for me, by following these 4 things properly, I'm able to achieve that part. And marketing, I think that's entirely a big segment, might be for another day. But in terms of intercultivation and its advantages, and what are the points that you have to look out for when you plan any intercultivation. So I have not gone very specific with millet and vegetable, but I have made sure that this works for any combination you go. Okay. I hope whichever information I've provided you helps you to improvise your production techniques and make a good profit out of it. And if you have any questions for me, you can you can ask me.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sivakumaran, for the detailed talk. And now I'll take up some questions. So, what are the key benefits of incorporating millets into multi-cropping systems with vegetables?
Okay, so one being millet is a very maintenance-free crop. Okay, to at least in my area, I don't have any major pest affecting my millet except for the birds. That happens when you decrease the area of cultivation, the birds' impact could be more. Except for that, millet is a very carefree crop, and being a carefree crop, all the major sucking pests, right? They are highly demotivated to enter your field when it is encircled with millets, which are of a good height. Okay, so if you say as a cost benefit in terms of pest management, nearly 20 to 30% of my cost of production get lesser. And why particularly millets? Because if you go with any other things, let's say instead of millets you are going with maize, some cereals, those will have some pod borers or something that are overlapping with the vegetables. Millet, it is very sturdy crop. So you are absolutely at a game. Millet is actually gaining a popularity here. Not you don't see it as a very consuming material only, but also for birds. There, if you sell it as a bird feed, that is also having a good profit. Like that, millet is having a multi-channel now. It has millet market has opened up a lot. So even when you have it in a minimal quantity, you will be able to market it pretty much very good. And as a crop, you don't have to. Being in a border, you don't need to think of in terms of irrigation separately irrigating it, because when you just have to concentrate for irrigating vegetables, millets will take care of itself from that. You don't have to separately plan for any watering for millets. And for millets, excess water doesn't affect much. So if, let's say for vegetable, you have a different frequency, because that also comes into play when do multi-crop. The main crop and the companion crop, both irrigation cycle should be similar, or some to the least doesn't affect much. So in the 4 aspects that I said, right, nutrition management, you don't have to care anything for millets. You just have to focus on vegetable, and millets will be giving better yield actually. Okay. So pest and disease management, they are like non-existent for millets, being a hardy crop. So they deter their spread. Third part is the layout planning and the harvest time, right? So any millet you go about will have like 60 to 90 days harvest cycle, which will be in parallel with vegetables. So for all vegetables will be within the 60-90 cycle. So you can, that is a good companion in terms of its, the frequency of harvest and stuff too. And fourth, in terms of nutrition management, I said you don't have to separately concentrate for that. You can just concentrate on the main crop and millet will take care of itself. So it is a hassle free option, I would say. So this will be the main thing. And also the and the economical perspective of it. Being an open market, you'll have better returns also.
Okay. Next question. Can you provide examples of successful multi-cropping practices involving millets and vegetables in our region?
In our region, as in which region?
First, our country, then any particular state you can mention.
Okay, so it's not a practice that I adopted by seeing someone else be practicing it. So basically, this is something that I initiated, innovated, and tried. But there are other systems like traditionally, let's say in Andhra, if you go, you can see all jawar being planted in the border crop. That is a regular practice. This is not something that is invented by me, but observed and improvised by me. Okay, they have not used it for vegetables. As a border crop, they use it, but they don't use it to vegetables. So I'm not sure. I'm not very expertise on every practice they do, but to the least, the way I have seen it, they have not used it for much for the vegetables front, but they have used it as a border crop because of the same benefit. It doesn't need any care, and mainly they consume it, right? In Andhra, they directly consume millets even today. So that part of the border, they take border cropping, they take it for the house need, and main plot they sell it for income. So a successful combination, I can say, for what worked out for me. But as a region, I have never, as I told you before, this is not something that I studied elsewhere. Like I observed it elsewhere and implemented it in my field. So I'm not sure on across the region which is working out as. But for me, I would say, whenever you do a multi-cultivation, you can plan your tomatoes together. A tomato brinjal could be in a nearer field, and chilies should be. I mean, the combination would be like bindi tomato. Bindi tomato or cluster green chili in terms of vegetable combinations. And as a border crop, that will you can use for millets. You can use any millets, whichever is marketable in your area. So that's another advantage of millets. You don't be specific choosing millets. So basically, the idea would be like, if your main crop is standing for 60 days, then go with the 60 days millet crop. If it is standing for longer duration, go with the longer duration millet crop. That's it. You don't have to be very because, like as I told you, there is no nutrition benefits coming from the border crop, but it is more of a fencing part, right? So you can go with any combination of millets, but in terms of vegetable intercultivation, I told you, right? I put radish together with another crop. Radish, you can put it with any crop as a bund crop. So these kind of combinations, I can, for the example I told you, right? Tomato, bindi, and radish. You can go with these three combinations. It works out because the boron that comes for bindi and the aphids that come for that main sucking pest that comes for bindi does not affect tomato. And radish are most likely, radish have fungal infection oriented problems, but not any major pest problems. These are for my field. Okay, so depending on which region you belong, and that's why I told you to try it out a bit, because at least if I come over there and if I try to understand the circumstance of it, what kind of pests are coming there, I can suggest. So it is the way you choose it is based on what kind of pests are available in your locality, what works out usually, and what crop variety that you decide. It is, you can't give it as a blanket medicine. That's what I would say.
Okay. And what are the specific challenges or risks associated with multi-cropping millets and vegetables, and how can we address them?
Yeah, so multi-crop millets and vegetables, in terms of risk, I would say one thing would be this manual harvest that I told you. Second thing is like planning your, how you arrange your crop cultivation, right? So when you harvest one thing, let's say you're pulling out radish, and nearer you have got bindi or something, when you pull it out, it root zone shouldn't be getting affected. So normally, I dimension it properly, like 4 feet. If I say I dimension it and have a, when even though I do a manual, so you can't go, you can also go with automatic sowing, but it becomes a bit complicated, because like you will see different seeds at different interval. So I have a small mechanizing tool that helps to sowing at a particular interval. So you need to work on these extras. That will be really challenging, because if you're not going to get your geometry of your sowing correct, then all this mechanism will be um, you know getting over one each other. So you, once you have a good harvest of radish, the bindi will be like totally out, or tomato that is standing in the middle could have been left out. And you have to time your irrigations properly. That is another challenge, because vegetables are very sensitive to irrigations, and while you think one of the standing crop needs more water, you should always give attention to certain crops. uh, Normally we will think in irrigation perspective alone, right? So we'll think, okay, that crop will stand for longer duration, that is fine. But here you are doing cultivation, so the canopy will be dense. When you do overwater it, then you have a risk of having fungal infections. So you have to think bit multidimensional, and there should be some pre-planning, pre-work, and pre-understanding. When as I mentioned earlier, even when you select varieties, you should, the person who is doing it should have a good understanding, at least should have a good guidance. Without that, to create that understanding, you should at least have a good guidance at an initial level. These things will be the main challenge, but progressively it will be very helpful. That was, so doing all these, undergoing all these difficulties will be very fruitful when you convert it as money, and convert it in terms of effort required to the returns what we get.
Okay. Are there government incentives or support programs available to promote multi-cropping practices among farmers?
Currently, I have not come across much of a focus for multi-cropping around my area. But as an from FPO front, I think that I have seen few FPOs taking expertise help, and going about with border cropping, not multi-cropping, but the traditional border cropping that we used to do has been revived a lot at the various areas. But in terms of financial incentives, I'm not. I don't think there is much.
Okay. And how can we optimize the use of resources like water and fertilizers when multi-cropping millets and vegetables?
Yeah. So I think when I summarized it, I told it out. So when it comes to millets and vegetables, uh, having multi-cropping itself is an optimizing way. Let's say, for example, I'm going to, in a traditional way, I'm going to grow tomatoes in one plot, and millets in one plot, and radish in one plot separately. Okay. What I will do is, tomato will have a different dosage of fertilizer, and millets will have a different dosage of fertilizer, and radish will have a different dosage of fertilizer. So here, let's say the same area, I'm applying a different fertilizer dosage for different crops, right? And at the end of it, if you calculate by merging these together, having it as a multi-crop, you don't have to, have this multiple dosage stuff. So in terms of, you can create blanket dosages, and the dosage itself need not to be that high as you normally do it, because there is this, whenever, let's say, the advantage of having radish in between bindi and tomato is that it comes out earlier, and when you pull it out and refill it, there is more aeration that is happening, and that actually kind of enhances your production of the other vegetables. So there is a very hidden synergy between them. So rather than having it in a separate group, when you bundle it together, you will have a very good quantity and quality of your yield. So in that way, in terms of effort also, uh, I would say uh, this is like most of a trade-off. Okay, having it as a multi-crop, that you spend more effort for it, but as a trade-off, the cost will get reduced in terms of the pesticide that you give, in terms of the nutrition that you give, and in terms of irrigation as well. Because see, currently I'm going about with rain guns. Okay, so so let's say if I have different cultivation, I will not be able to go with rain gun kind of a thing, because rain gun covers a larger area. But here, since I have multi-crop, and I schedule my rain gun in such a way that I don't have to satisfy the 100% need. I'll be satisfying 50% need, but I will increase the frequency, so that I maintain there is a self-cool mechanism also. Because let's say, yeah, I'm growing just tomatoes. The amount of time the soil is getting exposed to sun will be uniform for the entire plot. So the heat generated will be more, and the dynamics is entirely different. Particularly if it is organic farming. Let's say if I'm doing this kind of multi-cropping, the amount of time soil is getting exposed to sun itself will get reduced, and the soil will be more energized, and it works in a very dynamic and in very different angle front. So put together will be your better yield and better financial returns.
Okay. And are there recommended crop rotation patterns that work well with millets and vegetables to maintain soil health?
Yeah, so I told you the examples, like the rotation aspect is two things. One is understand the disease that are coming up for it. So anything that will have a viral disease or something like that should be followed by a crop that doesn't have that virus disease. Let's say bindi will have a viral disease. Together we are putting tomato that is not affected by viral disease, but by a fungal disease. So when you follow, but tomato will be affected by when this is being followed up, that area should be replaced with a millet area. So millet doesn't have these things. So basically you shift your cultivation. So this millet and vegetable combination is to make sure that we break the cycle and the nutrition need as well. So the nutrition requirements of the vegetables and the nutrition requirements of the millets will be different. And for vegetables, you have to rotate in such a way that one time a plot is not being utilized for any leguminous plant, next time that plot should be utilized for a leguminous plant. So by having these three into place, like one is that one, you go with the package which is like fungal affected or viral affected. If that infection has taken place, then replace that plot with millets. That way you break the cycle of it. And secondly, let's say in a particular plot I have given like leguminous plant, means next time you go with leguminous plant. So that way you do nitrogen fixing and stuff like that. So that's the way. I can't probably. I mean, leguminous plant is like cluster bean is any bean that you go about is a leguminous plant. Lab is a leguminous plant, like that. So I am not able to give a very strict framework of vegetables, because not everything will work out at every place, and soil type is of a greater importance. Being a red soil, I don't have much of a problem with water drainage, so these things work well for me. But if you come from a black soil perspective, then the entire dynamics changes. That's the reason why I'm not naming any particular combination, but the approach that you have to go about while deciding those crops. Okay.
Okay. And yeah, what research? No, sorry. Are there particular millet varieties that are better suited for multi-cropping with vegetables, considering our local climate and soil conditions?
No, as I told before, for millets, you don't have to be worried about. Millet works out at any place. It's a very hardy plant. It doesn't need any kind of care or attention to for it to make a very good yield. Without any type of attention or something, it will give a good yield itself. So together, making it together with the vegetable is by itself is a management. You don't, beyond that, you don't have to do anything else. So, and with respect to varieties also, like probably millet varieties, when you choose, I told you about, I can say those varieties that are available in my area. Probably for millets, I go with Banyan millet of MDU1. Uh, so because that has a good cluster size and good yield, and it doesn't fall by because of rain. So much of the millets doesn't have particular varieties. Okay, so basically you can define it like each millet will have its own height. Generically, only few millets are released by varieties, but in general you can go about with any millets, because it I mean it's not like a particular millet will give good yield to one area and it will not give proper yield in another area. It is not like that. I have the there might be a slight difference in depending on your soil type, but it not depending on your area as in climatic condition.
Okay. And how can we effectively manage pests and diseases in multi-cropping system without heavy reliance on chemicals?
Yeah, so first thing is that choice of varieties that you are picking, and how you make the combination of vegetables. So let's say you should know an understanding on what could be the disease that can come up for any particular brand. For example, let's say there is a variety from our Bangalore horticulture national institute. I think I'm forgetting the name of it, but our national institute at horticulture institute at Bangalore has got a tomato variety that for which all four types of fungal infection will not be coming in. So you can pick such varieties. So picking a variety is a very crucial thing. And secondly, by having a multi cropping, you picked a variety now, and you are combining the type of crop like tomato, brinjal, or these. You are fixing the type of crop based on these understanding of the pest and diseases that comes up. Basically, you don't group similar disease. I mean, a crop having similar diseases together. So the crops that are bundled together should have different pest and disease profile. That is how you look out for. That's how you group it together, and that's one thing. So you should know your variety, understand its disease and pest what could affect them. I mean, is it what diseases are susceptible for it, and what diseases are tolerant for it, and similarly for pest. And depending on that knowledge, you create the combination that works out in your area, combination of vegetables that works out in your area. And having it as a strip, as I mentioned earlier, will prevent the spread of it. Normally, when you go about it, the way I approach it is that I don't apply pesticides. Okay, so basically, Panchakavya, these are like, according to me, Panchakavya is more of health concoction. Okay, it has a lot of hormones in it. It has a lot of good nutrient tonic kind of a thing in it. So I don't apply panchakavya as a pesticide, but as a nutrient input. So let's say when I apply panchakavya, or I spray neem and uh, the cow urine mix. So when these cycles are done, and I don't use bio pesticides until unless there's an incident of pest. So when you go about multi-cropping, the best thing that you get is that you will have time to react for a pest, and it will, the way you plant will allow that enough timeline that is required for a biopesticide to start its action. Because like unlike chemical pesticides, biopesticides need some time for it effectiveness to improve, and it needs a canopy, because most of it will be fungal or bacterial concussion. So for that to multiply properly, it needs a canopy. So multi-cropping helps to have that canopy, helps to have that enough threshold of time for the biopest to work well. So by its inherent nature, uh, having multi-cropping of millets and vegetables helps you to on all these bases. Thereby, you don't have to rely on your chemical pesticides. Almost closer to nil.
Okay. What market opportunities exist for selling multi-cropping millets and vegetables, and are there any value-added options?
Okay, as in having a multi-cropping doesn't give you any special market position. Okay, so multi-crop is not like organic. You cultivating it is in organic manner is one thing. Okay, so normally multi-crop is taken up by people who are doing organic. So that's how multi-cropping gets a better return, because it can be sold as an organic product. But as such, multi-cropping can be practiced by organic or even people who are using chemical pesticides or fertilizers. So it's a it's a concept basically to decrease the utilization of our resource, fertilizer, be it fertilizer or pesticide, or I mean chemical or organic. Okay, so in terms of marketing, the way I can say the way I am doing it. So basically, for vegetables, as I told you, I don't rely on just the wholesale market, the mandis. I sell it to mandi. I don't. So basically, I connect with all segments of market. And you might ask like, okay, I don't have any big background to or anything to connect with the shops. Basically, the thing is, normally we put it to mandis. That's how we sell it, right? Small portion of my regular. See, basically, when you start doing it in a cycle, you can anticipate your production every day, or in a week how much you might get. Okay, so end of day, what comes out to you is you will have a number. So what I do now, I approach shops. Normally, I approach a shop saying that the way I sold it is like I will approach any grocery shop. For them, there will not be any vegetables, right? I'll give some 5-6 vegetable kind of a package. So I will tell them, if it is not sold, I will take it back. I'll just give them a minimum package. So I make sure my product is always in demand in any outlet that I give, and I don't dump it into them, because anyways I have the default wholesale mandi. Okay, so this approach takes some time. You are doing a brand building, so you should need to have that patience, and also the consistency in the way you give it, because end of day, when you want to reach multiple buckets, you must need a consistent product to sell. So your entire planning of your farm comes into play. So that way you can slowly elevate your market. And there are you'll get there are now there are a lot of forums, right? Let's say I am based out at Madurai, but Chennai there are people who are selling organic products. So I get connections when I start giving to some organic shop. I try to talk to them, create a network, and when I have groundnuts and all, I sell it to millets and groundnuts. I sell it to Chennai people who will be later distributing that to organic shops at Chennai. So like that, you slowly build your connect, and when you give up something consistently at a good quality, don't try to sell all your output in retail. Like that, don't go about it. I normally, the percentage I go about is like, I must only sell 50% of my total production into retail segments, be it individual customers or wholesale retail shops or retail shops. I sell only 50% of it. Rest 50% will go to mandi. So that 50% is my cushion. Suddenly, if my any demand is increasing, then I will allocate that 50% into this. Or if, let's say, my retail is not going well, or some I'm not able to demand a cost. I'm demanding a cost and they are not ready to give it to me. Then I'll push it that to mandi. So I'll have all the back and forth options. So that's the way I am building mine. Okay, so basically have a clear idea on what you have to do, and do not expect anything ready made. It's like, I have seen people talking to me like, I have done organic, so give me like double the cost. It doesn't work that way. Okay, when you do retail business, they will also need money. So you should have a proper business strategy for it to go about. What I told you is the strategies that I follow.
Okay. So now we have the last question. How can we ensure knowledge sharing and collaboration among farmers in our community to promote the adoption of multi-cropping practices?
Okay, so yeah, that's a very good question, and probably the most need of the hour. Okay, so the problem with this is that first, we like-minded people who are interested in it should come together and start sharing their experiences. Let's say I am at Madurai. The person who are seeing this or in different parts of the country or world might be. Okay, we can collaborate with those information among ourselves. First, form as a forum and try to evolve our practice. I have my experience, and I can suggest a solution to this problem at some other place. Okay, so thereby we will have, when people start seeing results, they come in. Say, let's say my friend, I'm doing it. See, currently I started it as a person who doesn't have any knowledge on agriculture, but currently I am consulting for a number of firms. Okay, so that's how it comes out. So now whenever I suggest multi-cropping systems to them. They believe me because they see it in my field. I show them how it works, and so they get convinced, and they're willing to follow it. That's so yeah, that's how it can be. You should have a prototype form where it works out, and slowly people will, when something is giving you good revenue, rest will follow. That's how it is. So this knowledge sharing is like, I must be willing to share that knowledge with somebody. That's the first part. The person who are involved in this should be willing to share it to another person, because we are not eating on anybody's market. Vegetable market is very big. I mean, vegetables or agriculture market itself is very big. By collaborating, we can achieve much better things. Because like, when you end of day, a person who has never stepped into a field or never know how a crop look like ends up gaining all our profit. We, after all the efforts that we put in, if we take one extra step to collaborate, just give up our egos and open up and share things, that's a start. And from there, uh, uh, I mean, you can't make anybody to follow you, but when by your actions, the results will make them to follow you. That's how it is.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Sivakumaran, I don't see any more questions from our participants. So now we have to come to end of question round. On behalf of agricultureinformation.com, we like to thank you for the detailed talk and answering all the questions in depth. And we also like to thank all the participants for joining this meeting. The meeting will now be closed.
Yeah, thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you.